Hello, I'm Edward October. Over the years, I've narrated more ghost stories, horror shows, and creepypastas than I can count. And yet, the crimes discussed on our true crime podcast managed to scare the shit out of me. This program is not suitable for children or the faint of heart. If you are such a person, go ahead and switch off this podcast. Listen to something else. Are you still with us? Well, we've warned you.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Kim, how are you?
I'm pretty good. It's summer. Summertime.
I know, it's fantastic.
Summer break.
It's really weird because, my kids are old enough now that they're never home. So, before it was like, God, I dreaded summer because I had kids on me all the time. What are we going to do? I'm bored. And now it's like, well, now I'm bored because I'm like, where are you going?
Yeah, what are you guys doing today? That's what I ask every day.
Can I take you shopping? Just, I'll buy you whatever you want. Just spend some time with me, please.
Nope. Once you get a driver, it's all good.
It's all gone. Anyway, what you got for us today?
Woo. This is haven't used this word for a while. A humdinger. This is something else. I don't even know. It's definitely a Lifetime movie, I think.
Okay.
It's so out there and just...
is it literally a Lifetime movie, or do you think it could be?
It should have been. It could have been.
Or could be still.
It's just...
It's possible.
Terrible. And it just makes me wonder what did people
let's hear
thinking?
It. Well, come on, let's hear it. Quit talking. Quit your yapping.
Here we go.
Let's go.
June 16th, 1987, and we are in Nashville, Tennessee. See, I figured you'd say that because both you and I.
Our friend Brandon's from Southern Gothics there.
And we both like Nashville.
And we love Nashville.
And a beloved church named the Emmanuel Church of Christ, Oneness Pentecostal Church, has experienced a huge damaging fire. Detective Robert Moore reports to the scene. He quickly determined that the fire had severely damaged the structure, burning so hot, extremely hot. It was so hot, in fact, the organ had melted and the chandeliers had fallen to the ground. This was a pretty high, I don't know what you would call that, the structure where, the ceilings are vaulted. The walls were black from soot and smoke damage, although he could see the
cathedral ceiling.
Well, I couldn't think of that right then, and I was wanting you to come in clutch, and I'm sitting here making the gesture with my hand right here, going up in the little...
I can't see you, but yeah, it's called the cathedral ceiling.
My head. Makes sense, since it's what? In a church. Although Detective Moore could see the severity of the fire, he was not there to investigate the fire itself, but rather something that one of the firemen had discovered in the church's attic.
Oh.
Since there was no electricity, obviously, due to the fire, Moore had to use a flashlight to make his way through the church. In the corner, he noticed a pile of stuff, mostly unused wood, materials, just a bunch of junk thrown into the corner. But there also looked to be maybe, again, it's all burnt up, but a rolled up piece of carpet.
That's never good.
Nope, it's not. Mm-mm. Wondering what could be in the carpet, or I guess in the center of the carpet, he begins to unroll it.
It's not a mannequin.
It is not a mannequin. No, it is not. As the carpet unwinds, human feet appear. But the shock was yet to come. The body had no head, and half of an arm was missing. Upon closer inspection, he notices a belt with a belt buckle. The buckle had the initial T on it. Now, there was only one person who had such a belt buckle, and that was the well-loved 44-year-old pastor of the church named John David Terry, who went by David. There was not a break-in, so robbery was out, and as the investigation begins to kick off, investigators will travel down a deep and twisty path to get to a resolution, and what they will find out is really difficult to believe, even for these seasoned detectives. Like I said, this is a Lifetime movie. I don't even know. It's a lot. The community is shocked by the murder because Pastor Terry was so well loved. Investigators have to inform David's wife, Brenda Terry, about the awful situation. And of course, she's devastated. But they need her to stay calm because they need her to help them with as much information that she can provide. They ask her about the belt buckle, and she confirms that David did have a belt buckle just like that. In fact, he was given it on Father's Day as a present. The crushing realization now becomes clear that David is gone. She tells officers that David was headed out of town on a fishing trip with his good friend, 32-year-old James Matheney. That was the last time she saw David. Witnesses would claim that they saw the men loading up the car for the trip. This was only hours before the discovery of David's body, which means James, at this point, is the suspect. The problem is, they can't find James to talk to him. He's missing too. Officers head out to the home of James Matheney to see if anything seems odd or out of place. As they pull up, they're greeted by a car, but not Matheney's car. In fact, it's Pastor David Terry's car. And as they get over to the car and they kind of looking around, they find some empty beer bottles, as well as David Terry's ID. There's also some fishing equipment inside, but the one thing that they find is a towel, which seems to have blood on it. Things are not looking so good for James Matheney, and they need to find him quickly before he does something once again. He went from best friend to prime suspect. Pastor David came to the calling, courtesy of his father, who was also a pastor. Pastor David was an animated speaker who preached fire and brimstone. He cared deeply about his congregation as well as his community. He believed in giving back and lending a hand where it was needed. As investigators reached out to all those who knew David, they could not find one person who disliked him. Everyone had a positive thing to say about David. All this is looking more and more like the only person who could do this was their number one suspect, James Matheney. Now, James Matheney didn't have the easiest time of it. He liked the bottle, and this soon turned into an addiction. This led to the dissolution of his marriage. His wife and son left, hoping that this would be the wake-up call he needed. In 1987, James called his ex-wife and asked her for help. He was ready to get clean and stay clean. His ex-wife suggested that the church would be a good place to start. He could reconnect with people who would help him, and that was exactly what James needed. Pastor David agreed to meet up with James. The two became close as Pastor David offered him a job as a handyman around the church. Pastor David even baptized James. All that knew James said that he was a different man after getting back into the church and getting clean. Investigators want to know what went so horribly wrong that James would brutally murder the man who was trying to help him. The police put out an APB on James Matheney. As officers are waiting for any tips to come in, they decide to go door to door in the neighborhood around the church. They want to see if anybody saw anything, if they noticed anything strange on that night. A neighbor had an interesting tidbit for them. He said on the night of the fire, he noticed a motorcycle behind the church, and the motor was running with its headlight on. That kind of sparked interest and made him kind of look at thinking that that's kind of odd. Mm-hmm. Adding onto the APB, police put out a description of the motorcycle. A call comes into the investigators that the autopsy has now been completed. Now, as you know, an autopsy is a helpful tool in a police investigation, and it reveals information that may be invisible to the naked eye. It could be DNA evidence, trace evidence, or even that the victim is not who they originally thought.
Ooh.
The headless dead man on the table was not Pastor John David Terry. It seems that the medical examiner was examining the body. She noticed some scars around the lung area.
Was it Matheney?
Reaching out to Pastor David's family and friends, they all said that no, Pastor David did not have any large scars in that area. So who is this man?
Did I guess
DNA was not quite a thing yet, and with no teeth, because he doesn't have a head.
Without a head, you can't find anybody, right?
IDing the body would be difficult. Mm-hmm. They reach out to the family of James Matheney and learn that James had lung surgery in the past. The victim was not Pastor David, but James Matheney.
The belt threw him off.
James was not missing, but now you know who is missing. That's right, Pastor David. As getting such crushing news and then this coming to you, I don't even know. I think I would probably have a cardiac arrest right there on the spot. Police head over to speak with Brenda Terry because they're, have to inform her that, hey,
guess what? Yeah. Can you imagine that conversation?
Yeah.
We made a mistake. Yeah.
Yep. Oops. Imagine her shock when the officers inform her that her husband was not the man murdered in the church, but now they need to find him. They need to talk to him. Brenda has no idea. Detectives are wondering if the person responsible for killing James has taken Pastor David and did something horrible to him or holding him hostage. The investigation changes gears, and now they're searching for Pastor David, but no one seems to know where he could be. An anonymous phone call comes into the district attorney's office, and they hope that this tip will lead to some answers. However, Jen, as is so often the case, it only leads to more questions. The caller tells them that there's a storage unit in town, and it has some evidence pertaining to this case. The caller gives them directions and says the unit is currently unlocked, but they will need to get over there, and within 2 hours. Detectives race to the location. They open the rolling garage door on the unit and are greeted with one single solitary motorcycle. And there's also a bag, like a duffel bag kind of in the back. But that's it. The unit was empty except for that. The motorcycle, they're pretty much sure now, is the same one that was seen at the church the night the fire started. It's also important to note here, that caller, that anonymous caller, has never been ID'd. They still don't know who that is.
Really?
Which makes you wonder who it is. I mean,
exactly.
I could have some guesses, but...
Well, when you finish, maybe we'll have some guesses too. So,
we'll circle those wagons back around. Detectives reach out to the dealer that sold the motorcycle, and they are informed that the person who bought the motorcycle was a man by the name of Jerry Milan. Now, they need to locate Jerry and find out how he ties into all this. It takes some time, but what they find out is a bit shocking, to say the least, like the rest of this isn't. Investigators put the name into their search databases, and nothing comes up. They cannot find Jerry Milan. That is because Jerry is not a criminal, nor does he have a record. Because you know what? There's no way that Jerry Milan could be involved in this bizarre crime, simply because Jerry is dead. Oh. And he died in a boating accident when he was just a child, 7 years old. Detectives realized that someone had taken over the identity of Jerry, and just as investigators are coming to terms with this new twist, a phone call comes from Vanderbilt Hospital and offers up yet another twist. David Terry is alive and well, and he's in the hospital. Now, I do have to point out here there's some alternating things here because one source said that he was in the hospital, another said that he called and said, hey, this is where I am. That's not even the good part, really. I mean, when I say good, I mean the interesting part that's about to come. Detective Moore heads over to the hospital. He needs to get there as fast as he can because all of the stuff, he's, trying to figure out how this all goes together. And he's anxious to get to talk to David and see what's going on with David. But there's another surprise in store for the doctor. Well, there's another surprise in store for the detective. It seems like David got a makeover, or maybe a make-under. Long gone is that 1970s mop-top hairdo, which I really think was a wig, toupee. And he is now completely bald. Even trimmed out his eyebrows. They're all thinned out, And the best part, he has this really deep, dark, fake tan. As a detective, who basically is kind of shocked, thinking, I don't understand how this is all coming together, attempts to ask him some questions and, such as, hey, where have you been? And give us something. Pastor Dave says, he's not going to talk. He's not giving anything up because he's already got himself a lawyer.
Of course he has.
Now, since he won't talk, police get a search warrant for his home. The first thing they do is find some cash, Jen. Over $10,000 in a bedroom dresser drawer. Now, mind you, remember, this is like
1986,
87-ish, right? Yeah. So it's a big difference. They also discover 3 guns in the home. But, that doesn't quite match up because there's a gun missing, as David had 4 guns registered to him and only 3 in the home. David claims that he got rid of the gun. He just gave it away. He sold it, whatever. At this point, it's all beginning to become clear that David Terry murdered his friend, James Matheney, but now they need to know why, and that answer comes soon. After getting the church records, do you want to guess what happens now?
What, after getting the church records?
Police discovered that someone and we know who that someone is, has been stealing money from the church.
Oh, it was either an affair or money. Yeah. That was my thoughts.
Yep. Detectives now can put together what they believed happened. So Pastor David needed someone who could take the fall for his crimes, and that person was poor James Matheney. Knowing that James had been down and out, he figured this would be the perfect victim. Pastor David had come up with the plans much earlier, way back, you ready? In 1983. He just didn't have a victim. So David's mother had passed away during that time, and he became severely depressed. And basically, he felt like he was a failure. He felt that he hadn't done a lot with his life, even though he was married and had children. And after contemplating suicide, he decided the better plan was just to start over as somebody else. David Terry would explain that one day he was looking at a Soldier of Fortune magazine, which cracks me up, and he came across an article. And in the article, it talked about disappearing, starting over, being somebody new. And, it offered, and for only $9.95, send your name and address, and we'll send you the book. So, of course, he did. He sent off for the book, and the scheme started to develop. He tried to establish a new identity by using the name of a childhood friend, but when that didn't work out, he looked in the obituary section of old newspapers. This is where he discovered 7-year-old Jerry Malam, who drowned in 1951. David then created a baptismal certificate, and by created, I mean faked, forged, and he would use this to get a social security card and a driver's license. Now with a new identity, he just needed one more thing to make his escape. Money. In 1984, he started taking money from the church. In 1987, things hit a wall when David learned that he would not be named the bishop overseer of the Emmanuel church. He had been promised that, and the main bishop had decided, hey, I'm not going to retire. So that really took him by shock, by surprise. And he was pretty devastated about that.
He's probably looking forward to the pay grade upgrade, right?
Pay and more control, I'm guessing. So all of the stuff happening, it started to kick his evil plan into motion. Now, at this point in time, David had taken out $15,000 from the church, stolen, let me say that. And it's here, using the name of Jerry, that he took part of the money to go buy that Suzuki motorcycle that we found, in that storage unit. Then he stashed the rest of it in a dresser drawer at home. That's the $10,000 that police found and was like, why do you have $10,000 in cash? So at this point, everything's in line for him and his plan. He just needs a victim that will die and make it seem like it's him. Cue James Matheney. David would befriend James, making it look as if he were helping out a fellow church member. On June 15th, 1987, the two men are getting ready to go on that fishing trip. David would testify that he gave James his keys and credit card to go get gas in the car. David Terry would then tell the handyman, gas up the car, and then when he came back, David was doing some things, that are a little, I guess, getting the plan a little bit better, getting it ready to go. And there's one of two things here. David was, the ploy, it went either one of two ways. David would either tell James that he heard this noise upstairs in the attic and let's go up there and look at it. Or he would tell James, who regularly did some handiwork around the church, that something in the attic needed to be fixed. That's how he would lure James up to the attic. The prosecution would claim that this was all part of the plan. David had placed a duffel bag upstairs with contents, including a change of clothes and that missing gun, which incidentally happened to be the gun that he shot poor James with. When James got back from getting gas, he was lured up to that attic, and this is where David Terry would shoot his friend in the head. Now, this is where I think you talk about premeditation, and then there's premeditation. He started this in 1983, right? Coming up with the scheme. But then all this little stuff, I mean, just think about this, what David did to get to this point. At this point, David needs to set up the crime scene to make it look like someone had done this to this man. It would be that the investigators were assumed that the dead man was David Terry and that James Matheney is the one that did this. This is where all this plan starts out. David stripped James of his clothes after he shot him in the head, and he put his belt on him. Then using a knife and a hacksaw, David would cut off James's head, as well as a portion of his arm. Wait till you hear what that's for. He placed the head and the arm, along with the hacksaw and a knife he used in a duffel bag, and James's clothes in another bag. He then drove out to the storage unit and placed the clothing duffel bag in the unit with the motorcycle. He then went to James's residence, his house, where he would finish setting up the scene. He left his car a few blocks from James's house to make it look like James had access to his car, to David's car, right? They wanted, again, to have it look like James was hiding David's car like a block or two over. Now, to further illustrate this lie, he left some clues for the police to find, such as those credit cards in the car, that bloody towel, and fishing tackle. Now, in a you can't make this up moment, David had used James's severed arm because he needed his hand. He needed those fingerprints. Yep, that's right. He took his hand and made sure to leave bloody fingerprints on those credit cards.
Oh, Jesus.
Right?
That's horrible. Yeah.
David then went to the storage unit via taxi, got on that motorcycle, and went to Lake Barkley, where he ditched the body parts and a weighted duffel bag. Don't think this can get much worse. It does. Realizing he forgot to do something, he then goes back to the church. That's where you see the motorcycle with the lights on, right? Mm-hmm. Before setting it on fire. He realized James had some tattoos that would identify his body. So he literally cut off the tattoos, the tissue, and flushed that tissue down the toilet. David then went and got gasoline to set the church on fire, making his getaway to Memphis on that motorcycle. Now, to further put all this together, David had left some insurance policies behind for his wife and kids, so he didn't want to leave them destitute, I guess. He was just going to take his $10,000 and his motorcycle and go live his best life, right? But he also managed to put, I don't know what goes through people's heads, especially somebody that does something like this, but he went and put a $100 bill in each of his kids' wallets. 2 days after the murder, David Terry was arrested for arson and murder and went to trial for these crimes in September of 1988. During the trial, David Terry would admit to killing his good friend, James Matheney, actually saying in court that James was his sacrificial lamb.
Huh. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. He was convicted and sentenced to death via the electric chair. However, the Tennessee Supreme Court overturned that decision when it seemed that the jury were not given the correct instructions in the sentencing phase. So he would be given a new sentencing hearing. The second jury, however, came up with the exact same sentence. Mm-hmm. Just as the lawyers were preparing to argue for a new trial in 2002, they would never get the chance. David Terry hanged himself in the bathroom at River Bend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville.
So in a way, he did get the death sentence.
Oh, he did, but yeah. So
wow.
That's a lot. Is that not a lot?
Well,
I don't even know.
Took him 3 years to plan it all, but yeah, wow.
But to have that in your head, that's what I mean. Premeditation is one thing, but premeditation for years? What?
And to be a pastor to boot.
So Detective Robert Moore, just a little footnote here, said that he testified in the trial that David Terry was very matter of fact, no emotion, no remorse. He said he was cooperative, but, he was just looking that he would be a little bit sad and that there was just no emotion at all. I don't know.
Very
no
cold.
Words.
Yeah.
Very, very cold. And I'm sure this is human nature, but a lot of the church members, and they would call each other like brother Jennifer or sister Jennifer, brother Terry, you know what I mean? And so a lot of them, it was kind of like it divided it a little bit. Like some were like, this cannot be right. He had to be set up. He would never do this because literally there was not one person that had a bad thing to say about him. Right. And then the other half, they're like, no, he did it. He admitted he did it. He said he was a sacrificial lamb and the years and all that stuff to prove it. So just a terrible, a lot to it.
Wow. Yeah. No, some of it is pretty, I don't want to say genius, but I mean, it's like
the hand?
Yeah.
Because I was like, why did he cut off?
That seems like some very cliche of something that you would see in a movie. You know what I mean?
That's the whole thing, though. It's so over. There's so much to it. And it's one thing to fake your own death and then the wife and then this and the kids and leave them money. And it's just a lot. So also, who do you think that anonymous caller was?
No.
They had a key because they obviously went and unlocked that unit and said, you have 2 hours
What if it's his wife?
That's what I was thinking. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, that's just speculation. That's the only person that I would think first, unless there is somebody else in the church that would have
that knowledge.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Or maybe a lover. Maybe he was having an affair. Nobody stepped forward.
Yeah.
Because he seemed very willing to just drop his entire family and
everything.
Go.
For years, though. 3 years ago, I decided I'm going to leave my family. But I can't be that cruel. So I'm going to take out some insurance policies on myself and make sure they get it.
Right.
And he did. But that's
crazy.
Just a humdinger. Am I wrong?
No, that's pretty crazy.
It's just a lot to it. And the police, what? So, yeah, it's just one of those.
I can't imagine having that big of a, not ordeal, but you know what I mean? I mean, that's pretty flamboyant. Crisis. It seems. Right.
There was, and I didn't even really get into this because I'm not sure if it's true or if he said it to make himself look better. But he had told them that originally when he came up with this plan, and this is why I kind of don't believe it, but I don't know. I wasn't there. That he was just going to come up with a scheme and that he and James were going to be involved in it. So there was going to be no murder. But they were going to try to scheme some money out of the church and then get away. And then somehow that all changed and James ended up murdered. And that's why I didn't really get into that because I think that was just him trying to make himself look better.
Get out of things.
I don't know. Yeah. Or make it seem not so cruel and heartless that you would kill your friend who you've been, counseling and mentoring. So,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's possible. And then he rethought or James backed out and said, no, I don't want to. And then he's like, well, now my only chance is to get rid of him because he knows the plan. Mm-hmm. If I would just disappear, he knows.
But I do think too, some elements of his plan were pretty solid, but that body is going to go to a pathologist or a coroner or a medical examiner. And they're going to realize that, you know what I'm saying? They were kind of built the same, but they're going to figure it out.
People don't necessarily take that scientific, They don't
think about that.
They don't think about that. I mean that was pre-DNA.
Yeah, this was 80s, so it wasn't a thing. But still, you would, I don't know.
The only thing you would go on would be, like you said, scars or blood type. Mm-hmm. And without a head to ID them or fingerprints. I mean.
I see, yeah. His other hand was still intact.
Right, but would they even have fingerprints on file for him?
I don't know.
Back in the 80s, did they do that? I mean,
I don't know.
I would think if you work with children now, you have to get fingerprinted, don't you?
Do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
or bank.
Right.
Yep.
Well, but I mean, he would be close to, I don't know if they do that for pastors.
But then I just think, people. I don't know, because somebody had to ID the body, so who did that? And your husband well enough to be like, those are not his feet. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't, but maybe you don't. Maybe they don't do that because it was charred, and I don't know. If anybody has any ideas, let us know.
Yeah.
Because
Huh. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Good one. Good one. That's a head scratcher.
Mm-hmm. And just he could have made it. He could have got away without doing any of that. He could have faked his own death, and then nobody would have died except for him, and then he could still be. You know what? He could have just left too. That's what I'm saying. He could have just said that I was going out for milk or a pack of cigarettes and just never did anything and sent his family money. Why did he have to kill somebody? Right. I don't know. Just divorce and go. Well, he had to die for that insurance policy. Well, I know, but he could just divorce his wife and go too, and just pay. Know how many, I know. We know about that. Yeah. So that's the story of poor James Matheney and Pastor Terry. All right, you want to talk about anything else? Very interesting. Well, it's summertime, so I know you're catching up on your TV time. What have you been watching? Well, I haven't even been out of school a week yet, Jen, but I'm glad you asked, okay? It doesn't mean just a week you could have everything caught up with. That's what I'm saying. I know you It's only been a week. You sit in front of the TV. Yeah. Well, I do other stuff too, like laundry. Okay, so Ted Lasso. That very last episode is, and I can't bear to watch it yet because I can't think about it. It's good. I'll tell you that. It's good. It's a really good episode. I do have to tell you that my deep dive yesterday was I got BBC Select on the old Amazon, and I went down the death penalty. You know how I feel about that, but I ended up watching all the series. Let me see what it's called, because if you are like me and you that kind of stuff And is it Death Row Stories? Was that right? So, Jen, the show that I wanted to say that I finally found it, thank goodness. It's called Life and Death Row, and it's on BBC or BBC Select to be exact. And I just stumbled upon this, and sometimes that's my favorite. So I guess...
I think I've watched a show on there.
Well, it's 3 seasons, but I stumbled upon the last one just as a fluke. Mm-hmm. And it was... I don't know what year this was. Was it 2012? It doesn't matter. Anyway, the Arkansas governor had scheduled 8 men to be put to death within 10 days of each other. And the reason, you ready, is because the supply of the lethal drug combo, that one of the drugs was about to expire at the end of the month. So I remember that. Woo! Yeah. So anyway, I got totally enthralled with that. I watched that, and then I went back to the other seasons or episodes, and it was more just like this person was put to death, or was sentenced to death, rather, and this is their story. So that took up the whole day yesterday.
Yep. Nope. I know the show you talked about because I have one. I watched that a while back. That one of the episodes will be on our Nightmares Before Christmas. So, So
upcoming,
there you go.
Upcoming.
Our upcoming. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
So,
good to know.
Yeah.
I
just finished the very last episode of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It was a great ending to the show, but I'm very disappointed it's over. I mean, I get it why they do it. Yeah. You got to cut it off sometime, but darn, it's a good show. I totally love it. Just the whole thing.
I can't even watch the last episode because I'm going to be sad.
Oh, I just can't. It's good. Well, you will be sad, but supposedly there's going to be some spinoffs.
Yeah, I could see that being set up already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. And of course we're doing the Yellow Jackets.
Road. Oh. I watched that first season, and I didn't. Maybe I need to revisit that. But
for me, it's totally jumped the shark this season, but it's still good. I mean, I'm still into it. I still like it. But other than that, you're the one that watches more TV than I do, so I always look for you for your TV.
Well, I will say this, which I think is. I don't know. I'm still on my school schedule, so I wake up at 5:00, so I can crank out a whole movie before 6:30 a.m. So this morning on the BBC Select, which, because this is all new to me, so I got to cruise through it all. It was a little gem. Very happy. It was called The Lost King, and it was based on a true story about a woman who found the remains of King Richard, like King Richard, Shakespeare's King Richard. And it was really good. I mean, this was like,
Oh, I've heard about this.
It wasn't a documentary. It was like, but it was just a sweet, sweet movie. I really liked it. So The Lost King, I thought it was really good.
I saw a TikTok. Somebody was talking about that show and how they really liked it.
Yeah. Yeah. It made me, I don't know, just sometimes you're struck with something and you stick to your guns and you make things happen. And she did.
Well, good
I liked that. I did. I liked it.
I am looking forward to this Saturday. I'm going to go see Martin Short and Steve Martin.
That's this weekend?
At the Fabulous Fox, yes. I'm very excited about that. I've loved Steve Martin forever, and I've also loved Martin Short. And of course, I love Only Murders in the Building. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Looking forward to that new season.
The whole family going?
Or nope, it's a date night. It's just me and my husband. I know. What's going on with that? I don't know how to act. So you'll be home at
10:30 in bed? I get you.
It's a busy summer. And we're coming up to our 5-year anniversary in July. So that's exciting.
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep. So,
and they said we couldn't do it.
And we couldn't, and we had to hire a lot of people to help us. We appreciate that.
Let me just quote that YouTube comment. Yeah, good luck with you guys. You suck. You'll never make it. Oh, yeah, it's been 5 years, buddy. So there you go. Wow. And that person then, they're like, I am so sorry. I shouldn't have said that, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, yeah, sometimes you get better. You figure it out as you do it,
yeah, whatever. I mean,
lots changed in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like with technology, podcast, stuff like that.
It's dumb. And also, can I say also again?
Hey, also, are you going to say something?
We were having problems with our Etsy store for our merch, and we've got that up and working. So if you want a t-shirt or
I gotta be honest. I didn't know we had such cool stuff.
I know.
Some of that, I was like, I think I need that little tumbler. I know
the tumbler's really cute. I have one. I bought one to see what it was like, and I really liked it. It's nice. We're on Etsy. I think it's Our True Crime Podcast is the name of the store. I do not know the I don't have the link right now, but
I think it's True Crime.
Yeah.
True Crime Podcast /Etsy.com, isn't it? Something like that.
I don't know. Or it's etsy.com/Our True Crime Podcast, something. It's around that area. But if you search on the Google Our True Crime Podcast Etsy, it will come up. It should be the first thing that comes up.
Well, also, I'd like to say that we are a musical artist, apparently, as you sent me.
Google. Mm-hmm.
It is... Just plug it in. I plugged in Our True Crime Podcast, and then I plugged in Etsy, and it popped right up. So there you go.
That's what I said. Yep.
Etsy. E-T-S-E. That's Etsy. What? E-T-S-E.
S-Y.
That's what I said.
E-T-S-Y.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
No Harvard in your future. Anyway.
Never was, my friend. Never was.
Nope, I know. So, yeah. So there you go. If you want some merch, if you're looking for T-shirts or water bottles, that's where it's at.
Also, you want to tell the good people where we will be in August?
On the end of August, the 25th and 26th, I believe, somewhere around there, we will be at True Crime Podcast Festival in Austin. And so come down to see us. You can go to our True Crime Podcast Festival. Nope, that's not it. You can go to truecrimepodcastfestival.com and get your tickets. And I think if you use the code OTCP, you get a discount. But come see us. We would love to see your bright, shining faces.
Yes, we would. Might have some trinkets for you. Some goodies.
Maybe.
Some swag.
Maybe. I'm working on that. I'm
little
trying
stickers,
to get some
little stuff.
Try to get something fun, something that nobody else has.
All right.
So come down to see us. But that's it. That's all I've got.
That's all I got, too. Else? No promos, right?
Nope. No promos.
All right, Jen. That's all I got. And guess we'll see you next week on the same time, same channel, all that good stuff. But until then, remember, lock your doors.
Keep passing by those open windows.
Bye-bye.
Love ya.
Today's episode was researched and written by me, Cam. For more information about this episode, as well as all the sources I used, please check out our show notes or the podcast website at ourtruecrimepodcast.com. Our True Crime Podcast is developed and created by hosts Jen and Cam. Original music and audio mix of all our True Crime Podcast episodes is courtesy of Nico Vertesi from We Talk of Dreams. Listener discretion is provided by Edward October from October Pod VHS. Our True Crime Podcast is executive produced by Nico Vertesi and Dick Vane. Make sure to like and subscribe to Our True Crime Podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. We can be reached on Instagram and Facebook at Our True Crime Podcast or on Twitter at Our True Crime Pod. You can email us at ourtruecrimepodcast@gmail.com. If you really like the show, make sure to check out our Patreon at Our True Crime Podcast. Our True Crime Podcast is an OTC production.